Hello, welcome to Dry Creek Beekeeping. Beeswax is used for many different things. However, the most popular use for it is in making beeswax candles, and that's what I'll be showing you how to do today. Using the wax that I cleaned in the previous video, link to that will be in the description.
You may notice if you watch my previous video that I'm actually in a different place this time. That's because I'm inside, since this part of the process doesn't make as much of a mess. So the things that you're going to need for this are very similar to the previous video. You're going to need a pan of water filled about 2-3 inches with water, although probably a little bit less than that since you're going to have a little bit less wax. Then you're going to need a can of some type to melt the beeswax in. This is a double boiler setup, and then that would go in there, but it has to be filled with wax first or otherwise it'll just float. Then you're going to need a thin mesh like this. I've used it before, so I'll probably get new mesh when I actually pour the candle though. And then, of course, you're going to need wax. I just have this from the previous video, and it'll do fine. Although, this has only been cleaned once, but if you cleaned it twice to prepare it for storage, then it'll probably look something more like this. And in that case, you can skip the step where we run it through this. So before you start up your cook surface, take this, set it over here, or wherever is convenient for you, and then take your block of wax. If it looks like this, you won't have to do this, but if it's like this, then you're going to have to actually break this up into smaller pieces. And once you've done that, you can toss all the pieces into your can. Now, some of these may still have this stuff on there. That's perfectly fine. That's why we are running it through that filter. So once you got all that in there, you can set it into your big pot. If it's still floating like this, then you're going to need to go and take away some water. So I removed some water and it's still floating a little bit, but some of it is on the bottom, so it'll be perfectly fine as it is. Now you want to start your cook surface. Start it on high for the time being, but also you're going to want to take this out to start. Then, just wait for your water to boil. Okay, now that your water is at a boil, what you're going to want to do is turn it down to medium. It doesn't have to be a heavy boil, it can just be a light boil like this. Still boiling, doesn't matter. Then you take your wax and just set it in there. Sometimes the wax releases a smell that some people don't like. I think it's fine. It's just a sweeter, waxy smell. So if you don't like the smell, then you can either do this outside or just open the windows. Now, just gotta wait for the wax to melt. You may notice that my can is doing this really weird thing where it's bouncing. That's just because water vapor is building up under the can and then popping out. That happens. I've had to deal with this every time I make wax. It helps to just turn the heat on your stovetop down, or you can actually turn it off for periods of time, then turn it back on and wait for it to get to a boil again. That works too. I typically just leave it on and let this happen. Also remember, as this is going, to use a stir rod to push it down, make sure that all that wax is getting in there. And if you need to move the can, please, please, please use a glove. I just use a beekeeping glove because they work really well to keep out heat. Alright, once all your beeswax is melted, what you're going to want to do is get a couple more things. You're also going to want to turn off the heat to your stove, but I already did that because as it's winding down, when you're almost out of beeswax, that's when you want to turn it off because it can take care of the rest of the process on its own. So now the things that you're going to want to get are a mold, your thinner mesh, and also either wicks that you bought or just cotton string. And I will take care of this first. So what you're going to want to do is take your string. I just got a piece about the length of my arm because why not? And then you're going to want to drop the string into your wax. I'm just going to put in about that much and then take it out and let it drip for a second because you don't want wax all over your kitchen or driveway or wherever you may be. If your wax ever starts getting cool and you notice that some of it is solidifying in the can, make sure to just turn the heat back on for a second or two, get the water back up to boiling, and then you can turn it off again. The wick is done. As you can see, this is all fairly stiff, and then it just has this string part at the end. That will be useful later on. Now what you need is a mold. Alright, the next thing you're going to need is a mold, and to continue with this idea of all this being free to do, I'm actually going to take this can and make it into a mold just by cutting it. Now that you've cut the lid off the can, what you're going to want to do is clean out the inside with some water. After you've cleaned it out, just dry it off. And once you've dried it off, you can just take some olive oil or vegetable oil and very carefully put a small amount in there. That was probably way too much. And coat the inside thinly with your finger. Once the inside of your can is thinly coated with oil, you can go ahead and dump the excess out, and now you're left with this. So now take your wick and a pencil or pen or whatever you have nearby, and at the part where the beeswax covered part ends, you're just going to want to cut that off fairly high up on the string still, but still cut most of that off. So now you're left with a small part that isn't covered with beeswax and the rest is. Now look at it in relationship to your can and then cut down there as well. Then from there, tie the wick around your pencil using the part that isn't covered with beeswax. Now you're left with this. Then take that, set it in your can. If it sits like this, then go ahead and just cut more off of it. And keep cutting off until it fits. That should be just about right. So now what you want to do is take the wick out for now. Set whatever you're using to pour the beeswax through on here. This is unless you already have double purified beeswax, which I don't have, so I have to use this. Then take your beeswax and go ahead and dump it through. Pay close attention to where the beeswax is in whatever you're pouring in. Once you get to very nearly the top, stop pouring, let all the drips go through, and set your beeswax back in the warm water. Set whatever you're using to pour it through off to the side, preferably on a napkin so that you don't get it on your counter. Then take your wick and set it in there. Now, you just have to wait for the beeswax to set up, which may take a little bit. In the meantime, if you want your candle to set up faster, then go ahead and put it in the fridge. If you don't really care, then you can just let it air dry. Now, while you wait for that to cool, if you have extra beeswax, then you can try to keep it warm, or you can just let it solidify. You may notice down at the bottom of this, there is a lot of brown goop. That is just some unfiltered stuff, water, honey, dust, whatever else may have been in there. Once your candle is done cooling in the fridge or air dry or wherever it may be, take it and just gently try to get it out. Unwrap the wick from the pencil. If it's not coming out, like mine isn't, and if you used a can, then you can just cut down the side of it and free it that way. And there you go. Now, just cut the wick. And you have a complete candle.
Anyway, that's the end of this video. In the end, I was super happy with the way the candle turned out. I've made candles before and none of them have turned out that well. The idea for using the can as a mold was actually fairly last second, but I'm super happy with the way it turned out. In fact, I'm probably going to use that again if I make more candles. Now, there are different ways to make candles and melt beeswax, such as not using a double boiler method to melt the wax, and also making different types of candles like jarred candles and dipped candles, but I just showed the way that I prefer and to me is the easiest. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like the content that I'm creating, and if you have any questions regarding beekeeping, be sure to put it in the comments. Very soon here I'll be getting my first bee package, so be on the lookout for a video on how to install a bee package. See ya!